Okay, music fans, welcome back. It's Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, and just like me here. Uh, Captain Obvious speaking here. As I tell you something that is so obvious, you already know it, or most of you already know it, but I'm here to add my own emphasis to it. There's this little collection that came out. The album dropped, I don't know, a few weeks back, and the rock and roll community did the collective blink as they then began talking about, I don't know, whatever else is going on in rock and roll. You know, Pearl Jam has a new song out. Really? Okay. Well, Jimi Hendrix has an album out. Now, as hard to believe as that is, he's got a 13-song collection out. It's called Both Sides of the Sky. 10 songs have never seen the light of day. I was listening not too long ago to Hear My Train A-Comin'. And here's Captain Obvious for you. Holy crap, Batman. Neil Sean used to fall asleep listening to Hendrix, Are You Experienced, and Cream Records, and through osmosis, I think he learned a lot. His technique is a little different than Hendrix, but there's a spirit that's there, and I'm not saying Neil Sean is Jimi Hendrix. I'm here to talk about Hendrix and how, when I often say, this guy's in my top 10, he's in my top 5. Jimi Hendrix is in my top 5. He's in my top 2. Now, let's just say it. Jimi Hendrix is the greatest guitar player who ever lived on planet Earth, and that's Captain Obvious, okay? The reason I'm saying this is it just kind of is weird how most of the rock and roll community kind of just blinked when this album came out and said, oh, Hendrix, new stuff from new stuff from Hendrix, no big deal. This is like new stuff from Beethoven coming up. Don't touch that dial. We've got some new Beethoven on the way. New Mozart on the way. I'm cracking up because it's just weird. And, these mainstream rock stations that are peddling like Puddle of Mud or Disturbed or some horrible here's some Nickelback for you. Nickelback, really? You got this new Hendrix thing. Well, the kids of today, they just won't understand great guitar work. They don't understand. And so we have to play the guy who plays like 2 or 3 chords really well, rather than this guy who invented a new way of playing the guitar. Why would we want to throw that on? Why, again, we interrupt this program for brand new music from Beethoven. Now, these are all songs that are cover tunes for the most part, from what I understand. However, Hendrix interpreting anything is worth interrupting this program for, Batman. It's a 13-song collection. It came out. Look, the Hendrix estate apparently has more stuff. And it's hard for me to understand because 20 years ago, all right, let me preface that because that's only 1998. 30 years ago, it's just hard for me to fathom this because time is just flying by. But 30 years ago, if this album had dropped, everybody in radio would have just stopped, added the album, added a bunch of songs off the album, and it would have been number one. It would have been number one for weeks on rock stations. I'm not saying it would have done anything on top 40 because Jimi Hendrix was not going to be on top 40, but the thing would have done extremely well, would have probably instantly went platinum, okay, and people would have been like, wow, another Hendrix album added to my collection, and it's just really sad. It's just sad on a number of levels because this guy was just, brilliant it's just not enough to give this guy a bunch of superlatives and just call it a day, okay? He invented new ways to play. He got emotions and sounds out of the guitar that few people can. I love Terry Kath, by the way, but Terry Kath didn't have the body of work, and he was operating in the context of a band that, he had to, in other words, he had to share a lot of those jobs and talents, and it wasn't just all Terry all the time. So it's hard to gauge, I love Terry Kath as a guitar player. I love Neil Schon as a guitar player. But Jimi Hendrix was this independent agent, and the guys in his band had to more or less try to keep up with him. And for the most part, they did, by the way. So he had some good players around him pretty much all the time, because he probably knew how to pick them. And if they sucked, he would say, hit the road. And he was very modest. If you watch his interviews, like the one he did with Dick Cavett, and he's just like, no, I'm really not that good. And it's just funny to watch, because if somebody stepped up today, they'd probably have all of this bravado and swagger. Hendrix wasn't that guy. He just wasn't that guy, but he was insane. Again, I would check this album out, Both Sides of the Sky. It's been out for a little while. And it's just Jimi Hendrix. It's no big deal. I mean, there's nothing else going on. If you've exhausted listening to your Foreigner albums, which, by the way, I'm not. This is just popped in my head. I love Foreigner. All right. So if you're back in the '70s and you've exhausted listening to the Starland vocal band, or I'm just trying to. It's just bad. If the Stampeders collection has run dry, then check out this Hendrix, Both Sides of the Sky. The estate says more music is coming, and it'll be another collective sort of blink as we all just say, oh, it's Hendrix. That's cool. All right, that's it. Captain Obvious signing off. You all have a great day.